Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in the DonnaOps podcast today. If you aren't sure already, DonnaOps is an AI agency and we specialize in implementing AI tools for recruitment founders to save time, money, and stress on admin so that you can run a more successful and fulfilling business. Today, we're joined by Dwayne. He is a solopreneur and founder of Harrowgate Associates. We're going to deep dive into his career and find out how he runs a successful agency. Dwayne, if you'd like to give a short intro to yourself.
Yeah, cool. Hi, thanks very much. Yeah, Dwayne Wakil. So I founded Harrowgate Associates about 10 years ago now, working the Rec2Rec market, focused on the tech and digital sectors, because that was my background. I was first doing tech recruitment as a contract recruiter, started my career at S3 and doing SAP contracts. And yeah, made the decision to launch my own business doing Rec2Rec about 10 years ago, just due to how my family changed and everything. But yeah, since then, it's all been good.
I think I don't know many people that got into recruitment purposefully, and most people always say they fell into recruitment. It's definitely how I started. How did you get into recruitment years ago?
Yeah, sure. A long time ago now. I think I was in contact with a few recruitment agencies looking for work myself, not in recruitment. I just happened to speak to somebody, and I think in that conversation, I said to them, what about your job? That sounds quite interesting. What does that entail? And, what opportunities might you have at your place or there? So I had a conversation with that individual. They said, okay, I'll put you on the phone to the manager. So I spoke to the manager, and they said, yeah, come in, come and talk to us. So I went in, had a conversation with them. And then, they was like, right, okay, you can start. I was like, oh, let's do this then. Because before that, I was doing sales roles. I'd always worked in sales previously. And yeah, it just seemed like quite a smooth transition to move from sales into recruitment. And yeah.
I was honestly pretty much similar myself. I graduated uni and this Rec2Rec called me up and said, oh, like, you've got sales experience. Like, I think you'd be really good for this job.
Yeah.
Went in an interview and they were like, can you start like 2 weeks in like 2 weeks?
Yeah. And the thing is, when that happens, because you don't know about recruitment, you don't necessarily really know what you're looking for, what questions to ask, or whatever. And sometimes I think it's a little bit luck of the draw as to which company it is that you sort of join. And really, you're just basing that upon the people you're meeting more than anything else. Obviously later on, when you've got a few years under your belt, then you're a little bit more different when you're interviewing. But yeah, initially you're just like, okay, sounds good. I like these people. Yeah, let's go.
That is literally identical to how it happened for me. You mentioned that you kind of started your own agency because your family changed. I guess what really pushed you and gave you, like, I guess, the confidence to take that risk and start your own agency?
Yeah, sure. So at the time, so this is what, 2016, 2015, I guess it must be. I had a little girl. At that time, she was just turned about a year old. So back then, obviously everyone was in the office 5 days per week, and there wasn't really much flexibility in the recruitment sector. You had to be in the office at this time. You couldn't leave till that time. So I just felt that I wasn't really getting to see her that much, probably more just at the weekends. Because by the time I left in the morning, it was early. By the time I got back, it was late. And I just felt like there's got to be more to life than this, right? And I think, when you have kids, your whole sort of thoughts on life and everything like that change as well. And so I just thought, I need to do something where I can spend that time with her, because, you're never going to get this time back again, right? And I suppose I thought of different options. I thought, I could go and set up another tech recruitment agency. But at that point in my career, I was managing teams and I wasn't really at the coalface. So it wasn't like I was actually making placements day in, day out, or, really fully engaged with clients. It's more about managing the teams. So it wasn't like I had a network of companies or candidates I could just, drop into straight away. And, over the years, I interviewed probably thousands of people to come into recruitment, right? Whether they've experienced or no experience. And often when I had people join my team that had come via Rec2Recs, I asked them about what their experience was like with them and when was the last time they spoke to them, all this type of stuff. And generally, most of them would be like, oh, last time I spoke to them was when they asked me for my passport and stuff like that. And I'd be like, okay, what about on your first day that you started? Oh, no, I haven't heard from them. Okay, but now 3 weeks into you being here, have you heard from them since then? Well, no, not at all. So there's always this thing in the back of my head anyway that, do you know what, maybe the level of service that some of these people are getting from certain Rec2Rec agencies, could be at a much better level and a much better experience for them. So I always felt like there's probably a little bit of a gap for that. So when it comes to me decide about, okay, what markets do I thought, well, actually, I know how to interview recruiters. I feel like I can generally spot a good recruiter or someone that's going to be a good recruiter. And I've already got a network of clients, right? Because, for all those years of working, I've had friends that have gone off, set up their own recruitment agency, or they're working for other businesses where in management or leadership roles. So I'm like, actually, I've already got a network of companies and clients I can tap into from day one. So actually, if I go and do that, then I should be able to get up and running quite quickly. Whereas if I was going to set up my own tech recruitment agency, it'd be like starting from the beginning again, which would mean probably lots of long hours. And that negates the whole reason for me wanting to do that in the first place with my little one. So that was really my decision-making process around that. So since then it's gone well.
It sounds like the decision to go like Rec2Rec was definitely to fit like around like your lifestyle and like your family
Definitely.
rather
Yeah.
than like, I suppose, you come to contact with a lot of like recruiters that it's very like financial and commission and rewards driven, which recruitment notoriously is.
Yeah.
Like, can obviously, I guess, satisfy like that kind of goal, but also as well, I'm sure, like, your wife, like your family, like it's a huge risk to make a decision to be a business owner and to go out like on your own.
Of course.
At the beginning, like, did you feel like the biggest potential risk that you were facing, and like what did you do to manage that?
Yeah. And I think that when anyone's going to go off and set up on their own, and I speak to lots of recruiters that toy with that idea as well. So I give this advice to them also, is that I think you've got to make sure you've got enough money in the bank to last you to pay your bills for a period of time. So when I made that transition over, I actually probably had about a year's worth of bills in the bank that I could fall back on. So in the back of my head, I was like, well, do you know what? If I don't make any placements in my first year, I can cover my bills, so I'm safe. But I was also thinking, well, if I can't make a placement my first year, then there's something wrong, right? Yeah. So I think you got to back yourself as well, right? And I think that's the biggest thing, taking that leap of faith to back your own abilities to be able to go and do that. But I think generally most recruiters have that, because otherwise you wouldn't be working in recruitment, because you're working pretty much in a commission focused job. Otherwise you probably get paid more money somewhere else for the number of hours that you do for just a set salary. But yeah, that was the thing for me, to make sure I have enough money there to have that safety net if it didn't work.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because going as someone that worked in recruitment to then to then have my own business, I absolutely did not think about like the emergency savings that I needed to
Sure.
save. But I literally just one day thought, I don't want to do this anymore, and decided to start my own business, and I didn't have that
Yeah.
that like safety net at the end of the day. And like that is something that, I don't know, I suppose as like when you decide to start your own business, you think it's fine, like, we're going to be successful, but you don't. Personally, the challenge I faced was like the reality of like we've still got to keep life going, we've still got bills to pay, as
Yeah, of
well as
course. Yeah.
obviously a successful.
And like I say to people, if you do a deal in your first month, that's great. But actually, when's that money going to come into your bank account?
Yeah.
That person's got a notice period. So let's say it's a month's notice period. So they can't start until, well, it'd probably be month 3 of you running your business. Then you send out the invoice. That's going to get paid probably in 30 days. So actually, you talk about month 4 before any money is going to hit your bank. And that's if you can do a deal in your first month. And so
Yeah.
realistically, you probably got to say, well, actually, it's probably going to take me 2 to 3 months maybe to do my first placement. So then actually, you're probably looking close to 6 months before money starts hitting your bank account.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely underestimated for sure.
But sometimes it can be a good way just to go into it, because then you've got a lot of, I suppose, stress on you to go, right, actually, well, I need to make stuff happen now. And you don't sort of sit back in your laurels a bit and take it a little bit easy, think, oh, well, this is quite nice. I can just chill out and I'm working for myself now. I don't necessarily have to start at this time or finish that time. I can just chill for a little bit. Actually,
Mhm.
you're like, no, I need to get stuff happening right away.
I think like with a skill that recruitment, maybe not a skill, but I guess wisdom that recruitment teaches you is urgency. Like success
Yeah,
only comes from urgency. There's no success that comes from sitting back and
no,
take it.
yeah, definitely not.
But I guess moving on, obviously, from like when you first started, and I know that you still are like a solo entrepreneur.
Mm.
How was like your role within Harrogate evolved?
Yeah, so I think, look, what's changed for me is more about my approach and the markets that I recruit in and the levels that I recruit in now as well. So when I first started out, I was like, okay, cool. So coming from S3, all hires were generally trainee hires rather than experienced hires. So when I left S3, they was like, right, great, you're going to go and do that, so you can supply people to us. So I was like, yeah, cool, great, brilliant. But actually, the reality of trying to find people, I suppose, like yourself, straight from university, without no recruitment experience, maybe some sales experience, actually that's quite difficult, right? And then when you do find people, then you've really got to sell them what recruitment is, because like you, like me, first of all, absolutely no understanding of what the job was whatsoever. Um, and then even when you do place those people, they might not even like the job because they've got no experience of it. So, so what I found was in my first year, I did make quite a few sort of trainee level placements as well as some experienced people, but actually probably about 90% of those actually all dropped out and pretty much had to pay probably 100% of the fees back on all of those for a lot of work. So I had to go, well, hold on a minute, I don't really like this. I don't like having to give money back. So I had to change my view on that, go, right, okay, now I'm not going to do training levels. I'm going to focus on, say, a minimum of a year's worth of experience. So I know that those individuals definitely enjoy recruitment. And and then just sort of fast forwarding in terms of my sort of LinkedIn strategy as well. So before LinkedIn, I'd just be direct messaging people. I never used to post anything on LinkedIn or anything like that at all. I was always felt a little bit nervous. I thought, well, I don't really want to put myself out there. I'm not someone who wants to shout, to the rooftops about, oh, this is me, this is who I am, blah, blah, blah. But actually, what I did realize was that having some sort of presence on LinkedIn helps open doors,
It
you know,
does.
because what I found when I started to post more and more on LinkedIn is that when I approach people for the first time, and if they've already connected with me, they've already seen some of the stuff that I've been putting out there. So actually, when I'm reaching out to people, I'm not just some random just messaging them like, oh yeah, okay, I've recognised you from the stuff that you've posted, and hopefully it's been relevant and helpful, etc. But I did notice that I've started to see a bit more of an increase of engagement and people responding back to me, and also same from a client point of view as well. So it's just really been evolving in terms of how I've approached the market, how I've approached the job, day to day. And bear in mind, when I first started recruitment, LinkedIn wasn't even a thing. Didn't exist. And it's such a weird thing to say that LinkedIn didn't exist. Bear in mind, LinkedIn is, ingrained in what we do as recruiters day to day now. But before that, it was no LinkedIn, so you relied on your database. You'd be calling up companies, trying to get past gatekeepers, getting through to line managers, and trying to pitch and all that sort of stuff. So, I think anyone who works in recruitment has to naturally be adaptable, because the market, or especially working in tech recruitment, the market changes completely, whether that's the type of tech you're recruiting, and because what you're recruiting 10 years ago is definitely not what's in need today. So just having that adaptability. And then also in terms of geographical regions as well. So I used to focus on the UK market. Over time, I've placed people around the world. Now I have probably a bit more of a focus on the US and the UK. And it's just been able to sort of chop and change and, understand where the market is at any one time.
Especially being a business owner, essentially, you're the face of, your business. You haven't got other consultants that obviously are also the face of your business. Personally, for me, if anyone contacts me, the first thing I do is search them on
Sure.
LinkedIn
Yeah.
all the time. So like being LinkedIn being like an integral part of like any entrepreneur, any business, or even just a recruitment consultant, to me, I think is literally one of the most important tools. Doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean you need to be posting on LinkedIn every day and sharing your whole life story, but just
No.
having some kind of like human presence.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what recruitment's about, right? Having that human touch and understanding people's needs and motivations and building rapport with people and stuff like that as well. So yeah, definitely.
I guess other than being regular on LinkedIn, how do
Hmm.
you, I guess, kind of split your time and like manage your time between everything across the business?
Yeah, and I suppose that's one of the sort of major challenges when you're a solopreneur. You have to do everything. And I think this is one of the things that, you know, when you're working for a large organization, you don't take all that into account. You think, oh, okay, if I go and work for myself and, all of a sudden what I'm billing, I get 100% of that. Great. But actually what you don't think about is what goes on in the background. I suppose from your payroll team to the accounts teams to the HR teams, the marketing teams, all of that. When you go and work for yourself, you don't have all of that. You've got to do all that for yourself, and that takes up a lot of time. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge is that time management piece between doing your day job to make money come in, but also doing the stuff behind the scenes that helps the company run on a day-to-day basis as well.
I
And
always,
it's just really just making sure that you dedicate the right amount of time for both.
yeah, I always like speaking on like before when I ran like an e-commerce business, you can like very easily do a lot of like busy work and like
Sure.
a lot of admin and posting on LinkedIn and responding to emails, but that takes you away from, with maybe a bit like cliche and a bit corporate to say, but like moving the needle, like as in
Yeah.
like doing actual tasks every day. And that might be things like cold calling, which
Sure.
people hate to hear about, but
Yeah.
there might be cold calling, that might be like sending voice notes on LinkedIn, like those genuine like core tasks that are actually going to like move the business forward. And those, I guess, probably the hardest tasks to do, but also like they're essential at the end. They're essential.
Yeah. And I think you've got to be able to prioritize what's important and put it into order and go, okay, these are things that I need to do, and these are the things I can do at a later date, and pick the times of day that you're doing them. I guess what's even more difficult now is balancing the time differences as well. So obviously working US market, they're not waking up until a lot later compared to me. And when I've been working, I've had times before when I've been working with a candidate based in Australia, candidate in, Dubai, candidate in the US, candidate in the UK, and you're trying to organise all these interviews and work out what time zone will that be and this be, and yeah, it can get a bit crazy like that.
Even with like in Europe, and there's like a 1 hour difference, and it's like working out what
Yeah,
time are they, 1 hour ahead, are they 2 hours ahead?
and make sure you book in the right time slot on your calendar that goes out to them, that's going to be in the right time slot for them for the
Exactly. And if
interviews.
they say 3 p.m., like, okay, do you mean 3 p.m. UK time, or do you
Yeah,
mean 3 p.m. Yeah,
exactly.
3 p.m. your time?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah. And
I guess.
trying to manage your kids as well, and just your family stuff also, because the good thing is, when you're working for yourself, that you've got that flexibility that you can, go and do the school pickups, drop offs, and take them to different clubs and all this sort of stuff, and be there for all the parents' evenings and the whatever else is going on for them as well. But then the difficult thing is making sure that you're making up that time elsewhere from your work point of view.
Yeah, I think I'm sure a lot of like business founders and entrepreneurs will agree to this, but when everything is on your shoulders, you have your business because you want to be able to enjoy your family time and your life.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
then it's a difficult balance to then not feel, I guess, the guilt of like, I should be doing this and I've got this and
Sure.
this and this to do and I should be doing this, and finding that like balance to be able to like switch off, but not completely off.
Totally.
I'm sure even someone that's had their own agency since 2016, sure you're
Sure.
still trying to find that
Oh
balance.
yeah, totally. And it's still a challenge that I'm still like, oh, I'm pulling my hair out over sometimes. We just come back from holiday and being on holiday as well. Like, as much as holiday's great, you also think in the back of your head, right, I've got this going on, I've got these interviews that are taking place. And to be fair, I think as a recruiter, you never switch off anyway, because no doubt, whenever you go away on holiday, there's always interviews going on. And, as much as it'd be nice to leave other people to deal with it, it's it's your money. So you're generally like, well, actually, I want to be involved with it. So I'll just take the reins whilst I'm away. But even more so when it's your own business. And like you say, you think you want to spend that time, with the kids and the family on holiday and that, but at the same time, you've got some stuff that you need to deal with. You can't just completely just turn your phone off and not respond to any
Yeah.
emails or anything, because it's just
Yeah.
not going to happen.
I'm sure there's been pretty tough periods in Harrogate's like timeline so far where you have literally just wanted to switch your phone off and forget about everything.
Yeah, of course.
What would you say has been like some of like the hardest times or like the hardest periods that you face?
Yeah, so I think, look, COVID 100%, right? Because, recruitment just went vroom, dive bombed. From my client's point of view, the tech and digital recruitment agencies, they were all sort of like, well, we don't know what's happening in the marketplace. Some of their clients might have been hired, but a lot of them weren't. They're all worried about their businesses. When those agencies aren't doing business, they're not going to hire any recruiters. And at that time, if anything, they was letting people go as opposed to wanting to hire people. That was a really tough time because you're like, okay, well, what can I do? No one's hiring anybody. There's lots of people out there looking for work. As much as you want to be able to help people and give people advice, which I was, but at the same time, you're like, but I'm not making any money off of this. So that was a tough time. But, again, I suppose it's just a bit like what we said, when you step into, setting up your own business, just planning and making sure that you've got those funds there to cover yourself for that initial period is the same thing, I think, when you're running your own business in general, that you need to have some funds in the background for when something like that, which no one knew was going to come, or happen. And I know it's very extreme, but for anything that might happen, you need to have something in the background to keep you afloat for a period of time. And I think, there have been agencies since COVID and since the boom and then the bust that maybe didn't quite account for that. And when it was the boom period for those couple of years, everyone thought, oh, well, this is brilliant, but didn't really think, well, what's going to happen when that stops? Because at some point it's going to stop. It can't continue like this. And it's just having that sort of, I suppose, knowledge that you've got to make sure you've got something there reserved.
I came into recruitment probably on that post-COVID like boom, I guess.
Sure.
And which was obviously very exciting and very, very exciting to enter into, and then also experiencing that bust are like my like personal like strategy completely like, took a whole new course because
Yeah,
it was, I don't think there's many recruiters that set out to be transactional, but it was a
sure.
real like, focus to be like a lot more relationship driven and a lot more, okay, the clients that we have, what can we really do to like transform and really make the best of this relationship with them.
Yeah.
um what do you feel is like some of like the biggest like turning points or strategies you feel like you've had to make into how you're approaching how you do recruitment?
Yeah. So I think my LinkedIn strategy has changed a lot over the last probably 4 years. I guess it's probably about, maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I started really sort of posting, regularly. And also a couple of years ago, took on board like a sort of outreach type of tool that allowed me to keep on top of all the messages within, LinkedIn to candidates and stuff like that, where before I wasn't. It was probably a little bit more haphazard. There was a lot of those messages and candidates just sort of fell through the net
Yeah.
because it was a lot of sort of manually going through previous messages to go back and, follow up on those as well. So utilizing tools. And look, there's loads of recruitment tools out there, probably too many different recruitment tools out there. So, it's just working out what's the right tool for you, what's going to work, what's your greatest need, and then finding the right tool for that. And that was the biggest thing for me. So that tool works really well. And then on top of that, it automatically pushes all those details from the candidates into the system as well for me. So it removes some of those admin type tasks. So I think it's just been really just the approach and using different tools, being open to using different tools as well. But obviously finding the right type of tools that's going to work best for you.
There, you're completely right. There is God knows how many recruitment
Yeah.
tools, CRMs, outreach,
And it's
lead
just
gen.
exploded in the last couple of years, really. Prior
Yeah,
to that, there wasn't really loads of tools. And then all of a sudden now there's a tool for everything.
literally, and that is literally exactly like AI. Like there's,
Yeah.
I think there's about 30, about around 34,000 currently different AI tools, like literally an AI tool for everything. And
Yeah,
it's not about like finding like an AI to do this. It's about like, okay, what are the current issues? What are the current obstacles? What are the current things that are holding me back from like my everyday and wanting to grow, and applying a tool to that essentially. You mentioned bringing in like some new tools for outreach. Have you used
sure.
AI at all within Harrogate?
Not really. I've had a couple of conversations with some different companies about what you could create, what would work, what maybe wouldn't work, and stuff like that as well. I say at the moment, I feel like there's a lot of noise around AI, especially in recruitment. I'm not necessarily seeing any companies yet that are going, yeah, look, we're using for loads of different stuff, and this is working really well, that's working really well. It's in motion, right? It's developing, and it's obviously going to get a lot better than what it is, but. Yeah, I guess for me, I suppose that whole time thing, isn't it? That's, and doing those sort of admin type of tasks. And that's probably where I see AI at the moment is probably the most beneficial. Yes, I think it will probably get to a point when you can start doing, proper outreach with it. The way I look at it at the moment, I think to myself, well, from an AI point of view, people don't like talking to bots anyway. So in recruitment, I think, so, well, how's that going to work? The whole outreach, you can already tell when people are using AI to write LinkedIn posts and stuff like that. And straight away, that just disengages people. So I
Yeah.
think you've got to be very careful about how you're using it, that it's not going to negatively affect you when you're hoping it's going to have a positive impact on you. So I think it'll get there. And I think, in the future, LinkedIn posts, they will be very personalized, that individual, outreach. I think qualification calls will be done by AI and stuff like that as well, because it'll be a lot better. But you're still going to need that human touch. I don't think that's ever going to change.
I going onto LinkedIn, I'm sure you're the same. Like I think you can smell a mile off when a LinkedIn post has been written by AI. And you
Yeah.
couldn't tell you what it is specifically, but I feel like you can just tell because it has like a certain tone of voice. And whereas
Especially if you've seen previous posts from that individual and you already got a feel for how they write and what they post about, and then all of a sudden you see some other posts like that doesn't sound like them.
yeah, but also with AI, like something I know that I would have loved back in when I did recruitment is even something like an AI call analyzer, like not something that only like records the call, but then after it gives you the summary, the
Yeah,
transcript, and it does all of like, especially like linking like AI knows the service that you provide, and then if for it to do the analysis of the customer you just spoke with and the problems that they said and kind of like generating that for you. Oh my God, that would have
yeah,
been priceless. And that was only literally 4 years ago.
sure.
Someone that like searched for, I think when I was doing recruitment, ChatGPT literally just started, and I was trying
Yeah,
to find how to like include ChatGPT in like in my day to day. So even in like the last like 4 years, it has massively changed. And
yeah,
in another 4 years time, like you said, maybe it will be quite an undetectable,
yeah.
complete undetectable
I'm sure it'll
LinkedIn.
get there, 100%. It's just, it's going to be a lot of bumps in the road up until that point. So yeah, it's just finding out what's going to work best. And like I said, I think the whole back office side of stuff, that's where I see is probably the game changer for AI at the moment. And especially like I said, solopreneurs, and when you don't have those teams behind you within a corporate business, that's where I see it probably being quite invaluable right now.
I guess for yourself, what do you feel like is your like biggest aim for Harrogate, and I guess maybe like the obstacle that's preventing you from getting there?
Yeah, I guess biggest aim is just really to keep doing what I'm doing, keep myself out there. I enjoy talking to recruiters. People often say to me, "Oh, I don't understand how you do Rec2Rec. You got to deal with all recruiters." I'm like, "Yeah, but hold on a minute, you're a recruiter." So it's really weird when recruiters say stuff like that, and I'm like, "Well, but yeah, we're all like-minded. We're all in the same industry, so we all must be quite like-minded." So I enjoy that part of it, and I enjoy being able to, give advice and talk through. Especially people who are a few years in and they've got certain challenges in their roles and stuff like that. And to me, what I'm doing is not just about placing people, is actually using all of my previous experience in my previous life from starting as a trainee recruiter, working my way up to, managing teams and all of that as well, and passing that information on to those individuals to help them go forward. So that's for me is one of the biggest drivers for me.
And what do you kind of see as like, I guess, in your day-to-day things that kind of like take you away from it and are kind of like holding you back a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's like what we've spoken about already, right? So just the whole time side of things, concentrating on doing the things that are going to be generating revenue as opposed to, like you said, just being busy. Because, we can all make ourselves really busy doing admin tasks or doing whatever, and it makes us feel busy. But actually, when you stop and think about it, go, hold on a minute, what is that actually doing for my business? Probably not that much. How can I be better using my time? And I think that's the biggest thing, really. And then the other thing is, I'd like to, probably spend more time, on the US market. So it's making that transition to being more focused on the US market, getting myself known more across into the US as well.
Yeah.
Generally, that's because, look, we know that the salaries are higher over there, so the fees are bigger. It's just such a big market over there. There's so many different agencies that I've never ever heard of, yet there's thousands of recruiters working for those businesses.
Oh, wow.
It's understanding what companies are out there compared to like what I've been used to here in the UK as well. So, and again, it's a bit like the whole evolving side of things. I think we're forever evolving. We're always looking for, like, how can we grow as a business, and what markets should we be looking at, and how do we break into those markets, and the different approaches that you need for those markets as well. So yeah.
Hypothetical question. Do you ever see yourself growing the agency in terms of like bringing on other recruiter who maybe might look after the UK while you go out and grow the US market?
Yeah, do you know what? I have thought about that before, and I have had a couple of people work with me before as well, on more like sort of freelance basis. And yeah, I like the idea of it, but then I also feel like if I'm going to do that, then lifestyle and how I'm working probably needs to change as well. Because I'm sort of here, there, and everywhere, running the kids around, picking up from school, doing this, doing that. And I feel like if I'm going to have other people working with me, then I feel like I need to be in and around the business a lot more with those individuals as well. But yeah, it's something I've always toyed with, and I think, I should do, but actually, when's the right time to do it?
Yeah, of course. Do you see your approach in terms of like business development and how you go about like your recruitment practices? Do you see them having to change and evolve and adapt in the US, or do you feel like you could keep it pretty consistent to how you have it here?
Yeah, I think there will be differences. I mean, the good thing is there's quite a few UK businesses that are out there, right? So I think the approach for those are probably quite similar. But when you're talking about the large US staffing businesses, I think the approach will need to be tweaked a little bit. Still working on that to figure out what's the best approach on that side of things. But yeah, so I think that you've always got to tweak your approach, especially when you're changing markets. So I think there's always going to be some sort of differences there.
And if you were a recruiter today, starting out a brand new Rec2Rec agency, what would you be the key things they need to nail first before they go about anything else?
Yeah, like I said, I think one of the reasons why I decided to do Rec2Rec was because of the people that I was hiring and asking them questions about how they felt about the agencies they've been working with and what level of engagement they had with them, like after placement and stuff like that. So the Rec2Rec business, it is very much a candidate-driven market. I think if you know it's a very much a candidate-driven market, then you've got to approach it in that way in terms of how you approach candidates and how you deal with candidates, how you manage that relationship. I think that's the key thing, really. And being open and honest with people. If you haven't got feedback, tell them you haven't got feedback, ghost them or do all these sorts of things as well. Which I suppose is similar to other recruitment markets as well. But it's just making sure you've got it, because the recruitment sector is so small. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I think it's more important, well, it's really important that you give off, that you're there to help as well. Like I said, advising people and using the experience that I've gained previously, which might be a little bit unique because I know there's some people going to Rec2Rec or some Rec2Rec agencies that might not have ever worked in anything other than Rec2Rec. They might not have come from tech recruitment or whatever industry sector. appreciate I might have made a slightly different take on it, but I think it's more about, okay, how can you help people regardless? Okay, you might not make the placement with them because you've advised them, actually, I think the other opportunity they've got might be a better opportunity based on what you know of that individual. And I think people actually really like that and will take it on board. And when they start looking again in the future, they'll definitely come back to you or they'll refer other people. The amount of times, I've not placed somebody, but they've then referred people to me that I have placed. And it's how you deal with that and how you build that relationship up with those people.
I think I completely 100% agree with that, because I always take the approach of like, what would I want from if I was this, I used to recruit software engineers. If I was a
Sure.
software engineer, what would I want the recruiter to act like? If I was a fintech, what would I want from a recruiter? And putting yourself in that person's shoes
Yeah.
is way more relatable, and I think, like you said, more long-term successful to advise them and to keep that relationship going. And even now, like in my current job, just being a person that, like, put yourself in somebody's shoes and being someone that, like, okay, what would I want to be if I was leading this AI project? If I was not leading this AI project, but if I was contributing to this,
Sure.
what would I want from a project manager? And putting yourself in someone's shoes, and
Yeah.
any industry, including recruitment, goes a lot further. And it always surprised me when I would hear about other people's experiences with a recruiter. Like you said, oh, I've not heard from them since
Sure.
I gave my passport, or I've
Yeah.
not heard my first day. I used to think, what do you mean?
Exactly.
What do you mean somebody can behave that way? Which I guess there obviously are people like that, and kind of gives the recruitment industry of the, I guess, that like notorious thing of like, oh, like recruit.
Yeah.
That I had it before, someone say that recruiters are like sleazy car salesmen, and I
Sure.
was like, I've never come across
Yeah.
anybody like that. So that kind of like worries me that there are people like that.
But
But I
it's
guess,
like any industry, right? It doesn't matter which industry you talk about. There's people that do a good job, people that do a great job, people that do a mediocre job, and people that do a really bad job. So, and often it's people that do a really bad job that actually that's what gets highlighted more than anyone else.
yeah, I guess moving forward, and like in the Rec2Rec agency, especially as you have moved into like more of the senior hires, is there anything that kind of like worries you at all about the recruitment industry?
Not really. I suppose, look, everything always changes. We go through these cycles of change, and I think we need to adapt to those changes and actually take things on board and that. But, obviously there's the whole AI stuff. I think sometimes, and I suppose it's a little bit with LinkedIn as well, I see some recruiters probably just using or hiding behind the tools too much. We always have to remember that recruitment is a people's business. People buy from people. If you don't get on the phone and speak to them and you're only just messaging them all the time, and you only communicate by messaging, and it's so easy, right? And I know the world's moved on from 20 years ago where actually, outreach now is more difficult. You can't just pick up the phone, call somebody and they're going to pick up. Me, for example, if I get a phone call on my phone and it's a number I don't recognize, I won't pick it up because I know 9 times out of 10, it's going to be someone trying to sell me something and I haven't got time for that. So if I'm doing that, I know loads of other people doing that as well. So I get the whole communication thing's changed slightly. I've seen people I've spoken to candidates before that have had interviews and offers and they've gone through an agency, yet they've never had an actual conversation with them. They've only had messages, emails, and that's it. And I'm like, how can that happen? It's just, I just don't understand it. How can you as a recruiter get to the bottom of what an individual really wants, what their needs are, if you don't actually have a conversation with them? I think that's the biggest thing that I would see as maybe a challenge, concern for the industry is that, I suppose the generation of recruiters coming into recruitment nowadays have been brought up in that, right, we just text our mates, send messages to our mates, whatever. We don't really pick up the phone and call them. We don't go out and, meet them face to face. We play on a computer and we do have our headsets and stuff like that. So it's a very different world. But so that for me is where all these tools are great, but they're there to help you make the job easier, but they're not there to do the job for you.
Yeah.
And the job is to meet people, have conversation. That's the exciting part, right? going out, meet people face to face and having a conversation with people, not just messaging.
Yeah, no. I guess also on the flip side of that, what excites you about the future?
Yeah, and I suppose the flip side to that on the AI side and the tools is that you look at what you tools, you go, actually, this will make our lives so much more easier, because if you think about it, if we can remove all of the noise in the background of what we do in terms of the admin stuff that add into the system, doing this, doing that, etc., typing up all the notes, like you said, if we can remove all of that and we've got this tool that just does it all for us, what that then should mean is that we've got more time to spend actually on the phone and going out meeting people. And that's where you can have the biggest impact.
For sure. There will be a huge amount of change. Like I said, 4 years ago, ChatGPT, the first kind of like AI thing, just launched. In 4 years' time, who knows where it shall be, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll see more and more recruiters wanting to use, and like their day-to-day role kind of like adapted to and around AI.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. 4 years from now, and we'll have another who
Yeah.
knows where this will lead us. Thank you so much.
No, cool. Well,
This
thanks for having me.
amazing conversation. I feel like we could chat all afternoon, so I would love to have you back on as a guest soon.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, thank you so much,
Yeah, no,
Dwayne.
thank you.